Hi, I'm Isaac Passmore. I'm a satellite systems solutions architect, and I've been working with ASRC Federal for the last 9 years. And today I want to talk to you about MOA, the Mission Operations Assistant tool that we have been developing for the last year or so to help facilitate and assist satellite missions operate successfully. So first off, what is MOA? MOA is a smart management system that allows users to quickly search through the system logs using a modern search engine. It's been designed for both operators and engineers, and also provides several features that assist with troubleshooting common log data issues. So why was MOA created? The GOESR mission that it was created for is a complicated spacecraft and has an even more complex ground system. Interacting and simply finding relevant data was just an overly complex task. The GOESR mission is also secretly a big data mission, and it's one of the first of its kind for NOAA. And because of that, there's not a whole lot of big data tools that are around to help support and facilitate the mission. So it was very easy for the users to just be flooded with all of these alarms and messages coming off of the system and just get completely overwhelmed. So trying to just do basic tasks remotely at the beginning of the pandemic was just awful. It was a complete nightmare. So we built MOA to try to address a lot of these concerns that didn't really exist all that long ago, but now because of this more complex mission and trying to do it remotely, we need new and modern tools to basically handle these new spacecraft. So right now I want to kind of jump into MOA and show you what it's all about. All right, so this is the MOA tool, the Mission Operations Assistant tool. So first and foremost, the MOA tool exists within the cloud. So that means you can access it from any web browser as long as you have a simple username and password. So once you've got an account, you can go ahead and log right in. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so this is a simulated environment for the MOA tool. Obviously, we can't show you the actual mission data, but we set up a simulated environment within a GovCloud instance on AWS to try to show off a lot of its features. So first and foremost, MOA is a search engine. So we'll go in and actually take a look at what this thing can do. Let me go ahead and adjust this date real quick, just so our data actually showed up during this demo. The way we've got this set up is we've pre-populated a bunch of randomized data that's similar to a lot of satellite logs that we use on the GOES mission, but we've kind of masked them and made it more generic so that it could apply to any mission. So first off, let's just take a look and see what how easy MOA is to use. So we'll just do a simple search for nominal and see what comes up. So we're as simple as that. We'll just enter any search keyword into this phrase up here. We'll select a date range up here, and then down here we'll see, okay, these are the results that are currently available on this system. So we saw we had 84 hits, and basically every single hit is a line item that was within a log file. So right here, what we've got is basically a single line item inside of this log over here, 22240.txt. Now, when we hover over this, we get basically a readout of where this file lives on our system. So the way we've organized MOA is that within your system, we will use the metadata of where the log file location is and throw it into MOA. That way, users who are actually operating remotely can log into MOA, but still see where their logs are actually living on the host system and can easily find them. I know for GOESR, this was kind of a problem just because our ground system was very complex and log files were all over the system. So it was, you kind of had to memorize where logs were. So we wanted to really simplify that by just letting people know, hey, here's a log and this is where it lives. So again, these are the results of just a simple search on nominal, and it's date ordered. So the most recent is going to be at the top, but you can change that if you'd like. And additionally, we've got other options up here where we can filter. So as you can see, all of these different results have the word nominal in them, and that's why they came back, but they aren't identical. So if we wanted to filter, we could. So if we only wanted to see bitlock and nominal in one, we could, and we would just do further filtering with this message here. Additionally, so that was a way to do a simple search. We can also do advanced searches. So advanced searches allow you to do different types of searches. So if you want to get as complicated as regular expression, you can do that. If you want to change how many results appear in the list below, you can do that. If you want to basically only look at logs from certain areas in your system, you can do that. So because this is a simulated environment, we don't have too many options here. But say you have multiple sites where your data is going, so you've got site A and site B. Well, you only want logs from site A, you would be able to select it here and then perform your search. Additionally, we've also got basically a search history. So if you want to perform a search and you weren't entirely sure what you searched on last time, we've got a history here, so you can always go back and refer to what you may have done in the past. Additionally, we've got saved searches. So with these saved searches, suppose you build some very complex search and it's hard to memorize. You can just save them and they'll be stored here for use in the future. And then lastly, when it comes to just searching, we've got a histogram feature. Now, what this is basically just a simple histogram of how frequent the search term that you entered shows up in the data that you requested. So again, this is simulated data, but you can probably imagine that if we were to do a search on nominal or some other alarm type word, we could get a general profile of how frequently that message comes in. So what this histogram allows you to do is basically get a quick and dirty feel for how your data is trending, which is really handy when dealing with anybody who is operating on console. So I know for the GOESR mission, and why this feature really comes in handy for us is, say you've got an alarm that comes down once a week, so once every 7 days. If that alarm just starts coming in every 8 days or every 6 days now, well, it's started to drift off of its normal cadence. That's a really hard thing to pick up if you're a human sitting in front of the screen all the time. And it's very hard if you don't have systems in place to do a quick analysis just to verify that that's actually happening. So this histogram allows you to do this on any single search. So any search for nominal, we can just do a simple histogram and see if that gut feeling of this trend change, we can empirically see it right here. All right, so MOA has a bunch of other features that we want to show off here today. So first, we've got this little menu down here that exists on every single result, and it's effectively an action menu. So we can go ahead and click on that and expand to see a bunch of different options that are all very common things that engineers or operators tend to do when troubleshooting with log files. So the first action I want to show off is more context. Now, the idea behind more context is it will go and grab this result here and take the user directly into the source log that it was pulled from. And the idea is it will give you more context inside by seeing that entire log. It'll give you more context of what was happening around the same time that this log line item was issued. So let's go ahead and click more context. And there we go, it's loaded. So what this does for the default is basically it will give you a bunch of results, and you can see that the one that we originally clicked on here is centered and highlighted. And by default, what this does is give you plus or minus the 10 messages, basically before and after this original message, to kind of show you what was happening around that same time. So you can get a feel for what may have triggered or caused or just been occurring at the same time that this message came out. So we can see that here, we've got messages above and messages below to kind of give you that idea. And they're all from the same exact log. So we'll hover over a couple of these just to give you an idea. Now, by default, it's set to 10 entries, but we can also change it to time. So we can do plus or minus 10 minutes, 10 seconds, 10 hours, and it does the same thing. Now, when you do that, you can see we've jumped all over in this place, but it's not exactly centered, but it still gives you that idea. So it'll follow this throughout the entire log, depending on how you want to do it. So let's get out of more context and show off the next feature. The next action is last seen. Now, what last seen does is basically what it does, exactly what it says. So it will grab the exact message, the entire message string, not just the term we searched on, and show you the last time that we saw this. Now, because we're using simulated randomized data, I'm going to have to go find and cherry pick a very specific example because this is randomized so well that there aren't actually any duplicates here to kind of show off what last seen does. So let's go ahead and instead of nominal, let's do download. So we did download, and the one I need right here is 385. So let me go do that. So last seen. So now we can see that the last time we saw APID 385 and was all of these times. So you can see that they've got different timestamps, and you can kind of see when these messages happened. So you can think of the use case for this would be you get a message and you haven't seen this message in months or even years, or you don't even know if you've ever seen it before. Well, previously, it would be really difficult to tell if you've ever come across this message. But now we've just got a single button here that any engineer or operator can easily communicate over the phone and trust that they're doing the operation correctly. And you can actually see, okay, have we ever seen this message before? And it answers that question very quickly. And I can't tell you how useful that is if you're trying to troubleshoot something at like 2 in the morning over the phone. Okay, next feature we've got are notes. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of little icons over here, which are basically digital Post-it notes. The idea of these notes are, if you don't understand a message, so for whatever reason, let's just assume you don't understand what download complete means, or there's certain additional instructions that go along with this action, you can simply leave a note here that's not conveyed in the message. So what an operator or an engineer can do is basically they see this icon, they click on it, and then they can expand to see what the details of this note are. So the note is what to do with download complete. So the note is, now that the download has finished, please verify the contents of the file. So a simple example like that. But you can think, you can apply this in a number of different ways. So for example, if an alarm pops up and the alarm's not very clear, you can give an exact human readable kind of instruction as to how to handle that alarm. So in the past, I used to be a ground system engineer, and I would get calls all of the time because something on the system would break. And at a certain point, you start to memorize which alarms belong to what subsystem. Well, you can actually basically leave a note here and say, hey, don't call Isaac, the ground system engineer. Instead, call Ricky, the antenna engineer, because this is an antenna problem. Sure, they're both on the ground, so if they don't know, they would call a ground engineer, but we've identified that this specific message could be an antenna one, so call him first to kind of speed up that communication troubleshooting chain. Or you could have this note point to a specific documentation. If it's a complex thing that needs to be handled and it needs a procedure, well, you can have them point to the correct procedure and just go from there. So it really helps empower the person sitting on console or whoever's looking at this message to take more action themselves and call out for help less often. And it really goes a long way to helping reduce burnout of those key people who tend to be contacted again and again when things go wrong. So we can quickly demonstrate. So adding a note is very simple. We've got an item here on the action list for add note. So if we wanted to add note, we would give it a title. We would give the details. And then we've got an option here to basically attach notes to future messages. So the cool thing about notes are, if let me go ahead and cancel this. If we get if we've got a message that comes down and we make a note, and that message comes down again, we want basically these notes to automatically append to all future messages as they come in, which is really handy, especially if you're looking at these messages in real time as they come in. So that's what that option allows you to do. And then you've got basically you have to attach a search term so the note knows, okay, how am I attaching, or how do I attach myself to a specific message? So we do that by basically identifying a search term, and that's one of the main reasons why we have saved searches. So if you've got a search that you know that you want to append a note to, or you know that you have a note and you need to go find exactly the right message, you go build your search and then you save it, and then you come in and build your note and attach that saved search to the note. That way it's attached to the exact log messages that you intend. All right, and the final feature I want to show off in the action menu is the notify someone. So what the notify button is basically a quick way for any operator or engineer working with MOA to email these messages off of the system. So let's just quickly take a look at what that is. So I go ahead and hit the Gmail option. It'll open up just a fresh Gmail email, and it'll grab all of the information that was relevant to the message I selected. And what we can go ahead and do is type out exactly who we want to send this to. Now, what makes this great is the fact that it's virtually impossible for someone to accidentally fat finger the exact details of that message. I can't tell you how many times I was woken up at 1 or 2 in the morning to try to solve a problem, and I asked them for a screenshot of the system or some other information, and I get like a half of the image, or just some of the information is just flat out missing. So the fact that we can kind of take that that chance for a mess up out of the operator or engineer's hand and just fully automate it makes this incredibly reliable. But we've got that email capability for both Gmail and Outlook just built in by default, just because NASA tends to use Outlook and NOAA tends to use Gmail. So we just built those in by default. So makes it easy for everybody who's using the system. Okay, so that's basically the search features. Now, I do want to show off a little bit of the back end. So there's 2 types of users that exist within MOA. You've got just your general users, and then you've got a more elevated privileged user that we call an administrator. Now, the goal of the administrative area is a way for missions to basically control MOA and kind of tweak it to fit their needs better. They shouldn't need to come back to us, the software developers, and say, hey, we want this feature built in, or we want these configurations changed. We want to basically give that power to every mission to tweak it themselves. So one of these examples is basically notes and how notes get appended to these log messages. So on the GOESR system, we had a very long, drawn-out conversation about how we want to handle new notes. And the GOES mission decided that all notes that are created, we just want them automatically approved and stuck on the system. Now, some missions may not like that. Some missions may want to go through a more formal review process to make sure that the notes are accurate. But GOES just wanted to get these notes out there to basically get as much use out of this tool as possible as quickly as they could. But that being said, there are ways to do that. So here are basically all of the notes that have been submitted within this demo server. So if you want to, you can basically select the note that you're interested in. You can approve it. You can leave a comment on it. So we'll just do that really quick just to show that. This is a comment. And we'll submit a comment. And we can see that it shows up right here. Now, a comment would be useful in the event that there is a review process going on, and something about this note is technically incorrect or needs tweaking in some way. You could leave a comment here to kind of tell the author of that note what they need to change. And then other options are basically just reject the note or just delete it because it's outdated or something like that. Additionally, you can go in here and just manually edit the note. So it depends how missions want to handle that, but we wanted to give them as many options as possible. Now, you'll see a bunch of options within the admin panel that we're not going to go into today. That's because these are future features that we're intending to build out, but they're not quite ready to demo just yet. but here's a little bit of behind the scenes of other things that we're working on to bring to the MOA community. The next one I want to talk about is basically processes and statuses tab. This is the backbone of MOA, or the back end of MOA, I should say. So we'll go right to left. So on the right-hand side, we've got the MOA system status. So this is basically the live status of the AWS systems and the other cloud systems in the background that MOA is utilizing. So when it's green, everything is functional. When it's red, things are down, and you need to tweak them. So we gave the user or the administrators the power to basically test and make sure and reboot those functions accordingly. In the middle here, we've got basically an automatic retention policy. So on the simulated server, we do not have this work. We have it working, but we don't have it running. The reason being, this is simulated data, and if we're demoing it and we accidentally delete all of our data, then it makes for a really bad demo. So we've disabled it here, but on the GOES mission, we've basically got it running. So any logs older than 90 days, it doesn't have to be 90 days. It can we can tweak that variable as well. But we basically just, there's certain data that they only want to keep for 90 days. And this allows them to basically dictate when that deletion happens and how frequently it happens, and just gives them a lot of control over how they want to manage their logs that live in the cloud that MOA has access to. And then finally, same idea as far as indexing goes. So what indexing does is basically a job that runs as frequently as they want. So we recommend typically you want to run it once a day. But indexing basically takes all of the nodes that you've created for that day and just indexes them across all of the existing logs within MOA. So with very large data sets, this takes a long time to run. That's why we recommend it only running it once a day. But on this smaller demo one, we can get away with running it a couple times a day because it's a much smaller data set. But you do have the option of running it manually or running it automatically. So as you can see, this is how we usually run it. It usually just runs once a day for us. And then let's see, the next item I want to go over is the feedback center. So in fact, let me talk real quick about the header that's been visible on all screens. So this is just your standard header bar that most websites have, but over here on the right-hand side, we've got a leave feedback button. And what this allows users to do is basically give feedback to the developers at any time, and it's right there so that we can quickly address any bugs, feature ideas that they have, or things like that. So within the admin panel, we've got this feedback center that allows the administrators to come in and basically see any feedback that was that was given. So in fact, let's just go walk through that real quick. So here's the feedback page. You basically say how severe the issue is, what part of the MOA tool you're talking about, and what's the feedback. This is and then give it a title and give it the exact details. This is a demo. Here's another example. So we can go ahead and submit that. We'll go over to Feedback Center, and we can see that our note shows up right here. So that's how feedback works. It's very straightforward, but it's, again, we try to build this tool to be as user-friendly and as intuitive as possible. And then lastly, we've got a FAQ for mission-specific questions here. So this is just a simple help page you can click on, and it's just the general questions of how do you search, or if there are any mission-specific questions that tend to come up a lot. We'll just throw them in the FAQ section. And then last thing I want to show, although it's pretty simple, we've got a simple logout button here, and it will just simply take you to the front end where every user will be assigned a username and password, and that's how they will access MOA. So MOA is completely cloud. It exists on the cloud, so it's easily accessible from any web browser as long as you have a username and password. And that's MOA.